So 7 years ago, I decided to start a podcast.
You know, I've talked about my mom a lot and how I carry her wisdom, her school of hard knocks. I carry that with me everywhere. So now you guys get to hear it from the horse's mouth, the lion's mouth. Just some experience. Just share a little bit of your story as much as you want with the people. How you got to where you are. What do you take with you? And especially since it's your birthday, what words of wisdom do you have for everybody?
Don't give up, no matter how hard it gets. Whatever you choose to be in life, be that. But make sure you're good at being what you want to be. People going to try to knock you down, just don't ever fall. Because that's where they want to see you. Only the strong survive. If you have what they call so-called friends, a good friend gonna stick behind you whether you're doing good or whether you're doing bad.
Tell them.
There's always gonna be someone that's not gonna want to see you achieve. Let them talk. When they stop talking is when you start worrying. So whatever it is in life that you want to be, you just show the world you have arrived and you be the best person that you can be. We can't stop people from disliking us. We can't make someone like us. We're not here for that. As long as we're fulfilled with ourselves and who we are, that's the only thing that matters. Because at the end of the day, when you're doing good, everybody wants to be attracted to good. But when you're doing something bad, nobody wants to be bothered with you. At the end of it all you have is yourself. So just make sure you're the best you that you can be. And don't let anyone stop you because they're going to come after you.
That was one of my first episodes before anybody was actually listening, before I actually knew what I was doing in terms of podcasting. And, that number 7, I've talked about it in a previous episode, how significant it is to me and how in life, every 7 years, there's a shift, there's a change. There's also that quote, if you're friends with somebody for 7 years, then it's going to last a lifetime. Within 7 years, there have been a lot of relationships that have ended. Up to the 7-year mark, or just close to it, or even afterwards. And there are also some things that have grown with my relationship with podcasting. That's why I have you guys. There's so much to be grateful for, and I think just understanding what it looks like to be consistent, even when no one's supporting you, even when no one's watching, even when no one's listening. And because I stayed true to myself for the last 7 years, what started out as just a podcast, me and a microphone, has become a growing community and a platform that has created so many different avenues of content, help, right? Connections, and also clarity. How dope is that? So what I wanted to share with you guys, first of all, thank you for being here because you are a part of the fold. You are a part of why this anniversary is so significant to me. I think one of the biggest things I've learned when I started podcasting or anything is, who are you doing it for? I think a lot of times there are moments where we are so desperate and hell-bent on being supported by other people. And that's where the steam runs out. For a long time, for years actually, the people that I knew weren't really supporting the stuff that I was doing. They weren't my first audience. Some of them were, okay? Very few. But overall, no. And even now, still to this day, people I know don't really listen, and that's okay because I'm not looking for them to listen. One of the things you have to realize and understand is that sometimes your reach, your home, your network is so much bigger than your backyard, and you will go far. And sometimes you will show up in places that you haven't even stepped foot in yet. I remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, my podcast ranked globally in the top 5% for educational podcasts globally. in countries I've never even been to, some I've never even heard of. And that's all because I was just willing to show up. One of the first things I promised myself, and I'll never forget, a buddy said it to me when I first started out. He said, pretend as if you already have an audience. Podcast first started, the goal for me was a couple of things. First of all, it was just to be a place where I get to create some level of positivity, right? That was one. But also, create a space where I can continue my creativity. So I am an artist at heart. I've been in the industry for the past 20 years professionally. And I think in that time, as an artist, you guys know if you are one, you have to be doing your own thing, right? You can't necessarily wait for other people to decide whether or not you're good enough, whether or not you're talented enough. And a lot of times it's important to remember that people are not necessarily looking to do the work to make you better. They are wanting to be a part of something that's already in motion. So for me, it just became this thing where it's like, all right, cool. I want to create something that is going to be impactful, that's going to be intentional, but also is going to be me. When I created this podcast, you had the Bird Brain segment, which was all about, mental health and, personal development and self-reflection. I just wanted it to be a chat. I just wanted people to be able to listen to this podcast on their way to work, before they go to bed, as they're just walking, doing their thing. And they don't really have to do anything else other than, hey, just listen. And if it applies to you, if it helps you in some way, awesome. And then the other part of it was the night owl, or is the night owl. And that just allowed me to be as creative as I like to be. I love horror, I love writing. I love creation. So I wanted to create a space that was very unique where I can write and narrate original short stories that I myself have created, right? So for years, I was writing a story a week and doing the editing and doing the music. And I had so much fun, especially around Halloween, because that's my favorite time of year. If y'all spooky out there, you know what I'm talking about. It really created another audience. There are some people who love to listen to mental health, but also love horror. I do. Even as a coach, people are like, how is it that you like horror? And I'm like, well, psychology is in everything. It really is. And when you understand that, it allows your mind to be a little bit more expansive. I think it's really important, or what I've learned to be the most important thing, is anything that will last the seasons, or anything that will show that it can withstand the seasons, is what's the most authentic and most organic to who you are. If this is important to you, it will be important to other people and the people that it resonates with. So you can't get discouraged when you're not being supported by people around you. I think that's one of the biggest things. Before you decide to give up on anything, you got to ask yourself, who are the people that you're looking to support you? Okay? What are they doing for themselves? Okay. I've seen so many times where people would talk about how they don't need to support their friends because, what if it's not the audience for the content, etc. It's like, yeah, that's true. However, even if your friend is doing something positive and impactful and you are their supporter, you are going to look for ways to show up naturally. For me, with this podcast, I was just like, you know what? This is going to be a personal diary, if you will, or just us talking out loud, just us having a little chat, a little conversation. And then the night owl, this is just some fun. So at the end of the day, it was always going to be me. And what I understood is, once I started supporting myself, and once I realized the most important person to have in my corner is me, all that other stuff is kind of noise. And at this point in time, I don't even look for support from the people that are necessarily the closest to me, right? But the people who are the closest to me naturally support me. And that's what I've learned too, okay? You have to give people something to want to invest in. And that looks like you investing in yourself, being true to it. Not because you want fanfare, not because you want to be validated, but because this is something that's important to you. And over the years, over 7 years of this podcast, so much has changed. Right? The podcast has stayed the same, but it has branched off into so many other avenues. Coaching, content, right? Books, okay? So when you kind of trust what it is that you do and why you do it, it will allow there to be so much space for more authenticity that comes from you. But also, again, it will create a community. That's what's the best part about it. When you're just doing your thing, like everything that's supposed to happen will. 7 things I've learned over the years of podcasting. Consistency is louder than confidence. There's a difference between arrogance and also a difference between confidence. I always say arrogance shows up in a room feeling entitled to be there with no history of expertise, no history of work, or just input. Confidence is knowing that, hey, the reason I got here is because I worked to be here, and I have the history and receipts to back it up. Okay, for a very long time, even now people still say, you know what, if you had a podcast, I'd listen. I'm like, yeah, my podcast is 7 years old. And I think that's such an interesting thing because, it's not about being another person with a microphone. It's about saying something that I hope will help other people who listen. Or somebody who just likes spooky stories like me, find your own little niche. Your voice is a lighthouse. This is huge because I think for so long I grew up not always saying much, right? Even when it comes to singing, not necessarily singing out loud. That was always a critique when I was doing big shows. Even my mom, she's like, bro, you gotta sing out. Like, you can't be quiet. This resistance I had to using my voice in so many mediums has now become the one thing that has created a whole different world for myself where people actually want to hear and listen to what I have to say. And not only that, they apply it to their lives. Sometimes you never know. It's the thing that you resist or the thing that you hide from is probably where the most gold is. Let people leave and let purpose stay. Some relationships will be worth holding on to and fighting for, but you have to make sure you're not the only one doing it. I think sometimes in life, there are so many different variables and so many pieces moving that we are distracted or even blinded by what's taking place. And I think especially with relationships, it's not so much just about knowing somebody for an extended period of time. It's also recognizing, how do you guys nurture each other in the process? So there's that whole quote of, if you've known somebody for 7 years, you've been friends for 7 years, that friendship is going to last a lifetime. Truth be told, the only way that can happen is if both people are intentional about the relationship. Otherwise, yeah, it's a person you've known for a decent amount of time. What is going into it? Health of a relationship versus just a history. Honestly, my relationship with the podcast has been 7 years, and I have no desire or intention of stopping anytime soon. And while there have been different seasons, literally and figuratively, different things that I've been going through in life, this podcast has stayed very much what it is. And it's blossomed in a way where there have been other things that have been created because of it, but that's never changed. Even the theme song I created on a whim. I was playing my guitar one day, I was messing around with my keyboard set that I had, and I was trying to just get this tune, or this rhythm out. And I created a song, I think probably a year prior. And when I was thinking of theme music for the podcast, I went back to that song. I was like, damn, I had it here all along. There have been critiques. Sometimes people are like, oh yeah, you should change your song to this, or maybe it would be cooler to have this. And these aren't people who are necessarily helping me with my podcast. It's been a one-man band since, but people who had their opinions. And if I listened to what other people wanted, not what they worked for, I would have no longer been myself, and this podcast would have no longer been mine. And people love the song. It's such an upbeat kind of vibe, which is what I love, because we talk about real stuff. So it's like, I want to make sure you feel something. Silence has answers too. This is a big one. Silence, allowing yourself to be still, allowing yourself to get away from the noise, allowing yourself to not always be so distracted. You'll get a lot more clarity. And also silence from other people. That's an answer too. That's clarity. That's from other dynamics is clarity. Being in the industry, auditioning like a madman, sometimes it's like, well, what does this mean for me? Sometimes it's just like, hey, this is the silence you need to keep doing your thing elsewhere. And that's what I've been doing, right? You can't always wait for some other person to tell you whether or not they care about you, whether or not you're good enough, whether or not you are valid. You just got to do it. For me, I love the fact that I kind of operate in this underdog kind of way, right? Whereas like I just do my thing, pop up and I produce, whatever is necessary. I'm gonna bring it because it just allows a lot less interference. You feel like you are not being supported, or you feel like you don't have, too many friends, or you feel like, your relationships are sour, or you're just not supported. I want you to kind of realize that sometimes you need a lot less distractions to focus on what you need to focus on. The things I used to say to my mom was like, the best thing that somebody can do for me is leave me alone. Because I'm gonna get some work done, right? I'm gonna do what I gotta do with or without them. And it's usually, hey, I'm cool either way. So if you're getting silence from your camp, from your tribe, if relationships are starting to shift or change, embrace that, reflect on it, recognize what responsibility do I have in this, and then do what you gotta do. Okay? Make noise with your presence. Make noise with your persistence. Make noise with what you produce. But don't fear silence, because sometimes that's where you get the most clarity. Be the evidence of your own healing. This is huge. I think, there's some people, especially, just being on social media, there are some people who brag about being healed and how they're more healed than others. There are a lot of people who are spiritual, who may not be the most kindest or authentic people when they're interacting with others, and it shows. I always say the true evidence of a person who really takes care of themselves is how they treat other people. How you treat yourself will definitely show up in how you're treating other people. So whether you're healthy or unhealthy, it will show. You can have boundaries, but you could also be kind. You can be intentional. And if that's really what your character is, that will show up. And then there are other people who may posture like they are enlightened, they're spiritual, they're these things. And then when they interact with other people, sometimes they're not the most honest, they're not the most genuine, they're not the most kindest, and sometimes they can be very manipulative. So being the evidence of your own healing means that you don't have to tell people what you went through all the time. You don't even have to tell people what you're going through right now. It's cool to share, but share it with the counsel that you can trust. But be the evidence of that, okay? Show up for yourself. And if you're doing it right and you appreciate yourself, or if you're learning to appreciate yourself by design, you will have the people that are necessary, because you're necessary. Creativity can be sacred and strategic. This is a dope one. This podcast, I wanted it to be unique. I wanted it to be my own, which is why I created a hybrid for mental health, but also horror, right? I don't think there's other podcasts out there like that. And it's not like I was competing with anybody else. I was just my own competition. And it was a sacred space because it allowed me to be creative without anybody else's permission. It allowed me to just do my thing. It allowed my brain to be expansive. It allowed me to be challenged. So it allowed me to be grounded. And there were even times where I was like, man, I don't want to record. Yes, I've taken breaks, but I realized even when I take a break, I still realize what's important. This podcast, there hasn't been a time where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna walk away from this and I'm just not gonna record anymore. Even when I take a break, I'm like, man, I can't wait to come back. There's so much to talk about, okay? And I'm just always coming back. When you want to understand what's important to you, think about the things that continually are resting on your heart and also in your head. You are your longest commitment. One of the things I always say is you are the longest relationship you'll have in this life. People will for sure come and go. And the relationships will grow or dissipate, but you are your longest relationship. And whatever kind of relationship you have with yourself will reflect in the people that you sustain. So you have to be so intentional with you as a person. That doesn't mean being hard on yourself. That doesn't mean, hustle culture, working 25 hours a day and sleeping only 2. You know, it means being at rest. It means being honest. It means pushing yourself. It means championing yourself. But it also means, you know, taking your time to appreciate the person that's doing all that work. Can't be your biggest supporter and your biggest hater at the same time. Sometimes we are so concerned that somebody else is hating on us, or we don't really have these friends that we thought whatever. But it's like, are you that friend? How can you prove it? A lot of times, if you're only appreciating yourself when you got that win or you got that validation, then you don't really respect you. It's about appreciating the person that's working out of the mud before they even get to where you expect them to be. One of the things I realized about myself is like, I work hard. I do a lot. And I may not always realize it because that is my baseline. That's how I function. I can do it. But sometimes I need to recognize what I've done up until this point, right? Everything that I have is because I made it a point to be consistent and creative and understand that nobody else is going to do this for me. And that's okay. That's necessary. I'm so glad to be sharing this moment with you guys, and what a blessing it is to look back 7 years ago at the first podcast, you know, chilling with Mama Dukes and having a conversation about all these things and being here today and still going strong. I'm getting stronger, honestly. And more than anything, I really want to thank you guys for being here, for being present, and for just showing up with the love that you have. Remember, at the end of the day, it's just information, y'all. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take flight.